The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, everyone. This is Chris Manthe, Fast Team Program Manager at the Des Moines FSDO. I'd like to welcome you to another Lighter Than Air outreach series. We have an excellent speaker tonight in Janet Patton. But before we go, we have Adam McGee on, and we also have David Hintz on. He'll be asking questions. If you have any questions, be sure to go down in the chat box, type your question in, and we'll get an answer for you. For now, we're going to go ahead and ask a couple poll questions to get started like we always do. So please feel free to answer the poll. And I don't know where my poll question went. David, can you help me out here?
Well, it appears the poll's open. I can see it.
I can't see it.
Looks like we got about 78% in.
Yep.
Okay, I see it adding up. I just can't see what I'm seeing on the screen. So I'll just keep
I
going
can
here.
see it on the screen. You're fine.
Okay. Found out about Lighter Than Air series. Looks like we're getting close to our 90% people voted. We'll give it a few more seconds because we really would like to know. And also, as you see, the 21% that got from a non-FAA source, could you enter that in chat so we know where you're getting your information from? That might make it better for us to advertise these. Okay, we're just going to give it a couple more seconds here, and then we'll show the responses. So should be able to see the poll results now. 70% from fasafety.gov, 9% from another FAA source, and 21% from a different source. So we'll go ahead with poll number 2. I've attended other Lighter Than Air outreach series. And that would be the that we're doing here out of the Des Moines FSDO. About 86% have voted. We'll give it a few more seconds. Okay, going to go ahead and close now. We've got 90% voted. So you can see 61% have attended before, and 29% is the first time. So welcome everyone, and welcome back for those of you that have been here before. We hope that the word is getting spread through the Lighter Than Air community so we can keep this outreach going and building. would you like us to continue the Lighter Than Air outreach series? We sure enjoy bringing this outreach to you folks. And we think that it's a needed area. And also, I know the 1% that said no, so we'll track you down. Okay. 93%, we'll go ahead and share that. So it is a very popular thing to do in the evening if you have nothing else to do, is come to one of our Lighter Than Air outreach series, and hopefully you can pick up some tips to be a better, safer pilot. I think I have one more here that I really want to share. The National Fast Team Representative of the Year for this year is, choose one here. And if you don't know how the system works, David and I are Fast Team Program Managers at the FSDO. We're government employees. Adam McGee came to me a couple of years ago. He wanted to be a representative, which means he had a strong desire to help aviation safety. And so I signed him up, made him a volunteer, and it just so happens I got out of his way then, because he's been instrumental in getting these webinars going. He's got a whole bunch of other things going on too, and he does not get paid for this. He's doing this out of love of aviation. And back in November last year, we have a General Aviation Awards program. It's not really an FAA thing. It's put on by industry. And Adam put in the committee, and he won the national honors for Representative of the Year. And if there's going to be Oshkosh this year, he will be presented that award at Oshkosh. So let's see. Everybody got that one right. So very good. So I'm going to go over and change presenters now. I'm going to hand it over to Janet. And while we're doing that, Adam, if you have anything to say, go ahead.
Yeah, first I wanted to welcome everyone tonight. And thank you to Chris, David, the Des Moines FSDO, and the entire FAA safety team helps us put on these webinars. We have a great webinar tonight. Wanted to first do some housekeeping and direct your attention to the handouts tab. There you'll find links to videos and helpful documents, including the Balloon Flying Handbook, which is considered the training Bible. You can ask questions in the chat box, and we will get to those and try to make this an interactive presentation with all of you. But to introduce Janet, Janet Patton is a student pilot for Lighter Than Air, kind of relative term there. She's a captain at American Airlines, flying the Boeing 737 based in Dallas-Fort Worth. As of 2021, total flying experience includes 35 years of flying and over 13,000 hours. Janet has been a pilot for American Airlines since 1998. She is a mom of two girls, Lauren, age 18, who just recently became a Lighter Than Air private pilot, and Danielle, age 16. In addition, Janet just started a one-plane flight school based in Denton, Texas, with her Piper Cherokee 180. Janet's background is all civilian. She's a certified flight instructor and keeps her teaching certificates active. She was a flight instructor and flew cargo in DC-3s, DC-6s, and the 4-engine L-188 Lockheed Electra. In 1996, she became Spirit Airlines' first woman pilot, and in 1998, she became their first woman captain. There she flew the DC-9. She flew captain at Spirit Airlines until being hired by American Airlines. Janet has an associate's degree in applied science and aviation flight technology, a Bachelor of Science degree in aviation management, and a Master's of Science degree in technology studies with a specialty study in transportation. So with all of that, there was no better presenter to talk to us about airport operations and ATC communications. So Janet, I think we have it changed over to you, so you can take it away.
Okay, Can everyone see the full screen now for slide 1?
Nope, not yet.
Oh, okay. Hold on one second. Are you not seeing it at all?
Nope, I just see you and Adam right now.
Okay, somewhere that little box that said start went away. So let's see. It says I'm presenting. Why isn't it showing up? So you only see us. Okay, hold on. Let me make sure it's not hidden somewhere here. This worked in our test mode. Okay. Maybe I can pass it off to you real quick again, and then you can pass it back to me because it's not for some reason going. Would that be okay?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and try to hand it to Adam?
Okay, hold on one second. Sorry. Adam has it right now, it looks like. Okay, show my screen. And now do you have it?
Yep,
Yeah.
it's small. There we go. Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. For some reason, that little box that said take it went away. All right, technical difficulties. We all have them, right? Okay, thank you very much for that nice introduction. Congratulations, Adam. That's absolutely wonderful. I actually used to be a member of the FAST team as well at one point in my life. And so I think it's an awesome thing that you guys are doing, especially for lighter than air, which is desperately needed, I think, in this area of the aviation community. So thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you about something that I do on a daily basis with my work in my job and also flying airplanes. So, and I'd love to have it easier for lighter than air pilots to feel comfortable talking on the radio with air traffic control or just non-tower communications. So that's why this presentation is important to me, and I'm happy to do this with you. Okay, let's go ahead and click. Okay, do you feel like this meme? If you do, you are not alone. Student pilots talking to ATC. Okay. It definitely is one of those things that when you are not used to, whether you're a lighter than air pilot or a student pilot, talking to air traffic controllers is definitely something that I think most people would say makes them nervous, gets their heart going when you are first starting off or if you haven't done it much, and that's okay. You're not alone in that. We all started. I was the same way. I'm going to present to you so that hopefully you feel like it is something that you can do and do confidently as you progress through your flying. All right, so talking to ATC is just like talking to anyone else. It's just a conversation on the radio. It's what we're having right now. That's how I like to view it. So please keep that in mind. Now, I always like to start with all communication is who you are, where you are, and what you want. You always preface it with who you're calling first. Now, if you read the manual, the Balloon Flying Handbook, it will say that there's 4 elements to it because they add who you're talking to first. But for me, it's always easier to remember it is who the W's, who you are, where you are, what you want. And knowing that those 3 is easier for me to remember, but always prefacing it for who are you talking to first. That's who you want to address first. We're going to hear that coming up in some communication, but keep that in mind. So it's just who you are, where you are, what you want. Now, what I like to say is you can use a script if you have to. If you need reminders, write that down, take a screenshot of it. It's okay to use written guidance if you're not comfortable with talking to ATC. If you don't talk to them frequently, it's okay. My suggestion is if you're not using an iPad, just to write it on a note card. That's how I started as a student pilot. I just had all my communication written on a note card that I could grab and read in the beginning until I felt comfortable. Or you could put it onto a screenshot and save it as a favorite picture on your iPad if you fly with an iPad, so that you can go to photos, pull up favorite, and you can read it from there. I still do that actually as an airline captain for a PA that I have to make that's passenger address to the passengers before we take off. I actually read it from a favorited picture on my iPad because that's the easiest way to do it, and that way I make sure I get that right. So that's okay if you need to use something. By all means, please do until you get used to talking on the radio more. All right. Oh, hold on. Let me make sure I didn't. Oops, we're going the wrong way. Okay, let me go back. Okay, so let's listen to this. We're going to listen to this, and if we need to, if you can't hear the audio, let me know. I'm going to turn it up all the way. This is a YouTube video that I made about, I call it my candlestick only transmission. Now let me give you the lead-in situation to this. This was a couple weeks ago. I'm a student pilot. I did a candlestick only as a demonstration for a fly-in event at Denton, Texas called Airplanes and Coffee. So a whole bunch of planes were flying in for this event. And so what you're going to hear is a couple of airplanes coming into land with tower before you hear me talking to the tower. So let's listen to this. And that's the lead-in scenario. And then what we're going to do is we're going to discuss some things that we've heard about this transmission. And it's not very long. The whole thing is less than a minute. I'm going to go ahead and play it. And if we need to, we'll listen to the audio a different way, but I'm going to turn it up all the way and we'll see if everyone can hear it. In the questions, put what you heard that we need to discuss with these transmissions. Okay, let's try this.
Cessna 4 Sierra Foxtrot, fly runway heading. I'll call your crosswind turn.
Runway heading 4 Sierra Foxtrot.
Quasar 9er Quebec Lima. You're going to land on the east runway, the bigger of the two. Runway 18 left, clear to land. There'll be one departure.
Okay, clear to land, 18 left.
Tower, balloon 7024 Delta.
Balloon 7424 Delta.
Balloon 7024 Delta, Kennedy ramp. We're going to be candlestick only, no inflation, tether, or flight.
Balloon 7024 Delta, thank you.
Okay, so let's go ahead and discuss this real quick. Adam, is there anyone in the chat who had what they thought they heard, some things that we can talk about?
Let's see, we're having,
I've got a couple that says, why do we expect ATC to know what candlestick is? And then the same question was, why do we call in for a candlestick non-fit?
What was the?
And what is candlestick? I guess is a lot of the questions I'm seeing right now.
Okay. Okay. Anything else that may?
I didn't hear your location. Where were you located?
Okay. It was.
One of them was they read back your number wrong at first.
Okay. Okay. Very good. And let's.
Man, they're flying in now. Sorry, I can't read this fast.
That's okay. We have time. We can.
Yeah. Wow. It's just like flying. Communication to the tower with intention, not with inflation. Repeat info back to the agent.
Okay.
I couldn't hear the number of the Cessna, but I heard them request to land and where were they coming from? And then they were told them they were land on what runways.
Okay.
So, okay, anyway, I'll let you take this because we're just getting a lot of the repeat questions now.
Okay, great. So the candlestick, I hadn't actually thought of that one. So the candlestick only for, I don't know how popular of a term that is. Is that pretty popular of a term? We use it here in the Denton area. I mean, in the DFW Metroplex area. Is that a common term for you guys or not for lighter than air?
Candlestick?
Yeah. Like
No, never heard it before.
okay. So that's a very interesting thing that I hadn't thought of because I didn't know candlestick term either, but we use it here in the DFW Metroplex area. A candlestick only means I'm only going to set the balloon up with the basket and the burner. I'm not going to put the envelope on it. And we do that a lot here in Texas because we'll have glows where we can't actually set the balloon up because it's too windy. But in order to give the crowd something, we do what's called candlestick only. So I thought that was a term that more people used in the ballooning community. My controllers, I'll get to that about with the controllers in the candlestick in a little bit later in the presentation. But that is a good thing that I didn't realize the rest of the LTA community didn't know. So what I was telling them was, okay, let's address first the location was there. I said Trinity Ramp. So I called them Denton Tower, and I said balloon 7024 Delta, Trinity Ramp, candlestick only, meaning I'm just going to set it up to be the burner only, no inflation, tether, or flight. Now, the reason why I did that is because I did the same thing a month prior. And I don't technically have to call the tower, but this is a fly-in event and all the planes are coming and they're parking on the ramp. And when I did it in January as a candlestick only, they sent airport ops out to make sure I wasn't going to go fly because, and we'll address this part a little bit later in the presentation also, is they are not used to having balloons and they had no idea that I was just setting it up with the burner and that I couldn't really get off the ground anyway. I mean, that didn't even cross their mind that I wasn't going to be able to fly it. So I have to educate my tower controllers a little bit, and I'm going to be doing training at the field actually. So I want them to be aware that as an aircraft operating at a towered field, that they know what I'm doing. If they can see me, I don't want them to have to send out airport ops saying, hey, are you going flying right now? I want them to be aware of it. So on this one, what I did was they knew I was going to be setting up. So I used it as an opportunity to educate my tower controllers to know that I was going to be doing what I call candlestick only. And I told them no inflation because they're going to learn what that is. No, because sometimes we do inflation training only, and that's all we do. No tether, which we all know what tether is, and no flight, actually no flying. So I wanted them to know I wasn't going anywhere and they didn't have to be concerned with me being surrounded by other airplanes and what is she doing like they were the month before. Okay, so those are all really good. So yes, they did screw up. He did screw up my tail number, as some of you have caught. So then I read back slowly because I caught that he missed the call sign. So I read back slowly 7024 Delta. So that gives him a chance to go, okay, 7024 Delta, because he's just going to repeat what he hears. He is writing it on a tablet, but he'll then scratch off what he heard the first time and correct it with my correct call sign. So I read it back slowly, knowing that he didn't get it right the first time. And then he, as you heard, he called me a bonanza. And that's because they're not used to saying the word balloon yet. And so he corrected himself. He realized he called me the wrong thing. So he corrected himself on that. And the only other thing I want to point out, because the scenario was such that the second plane was an older gentleman flying in for this. He had situational awareness control issues coming in to land. I heard it. I was using my handheld radio. It's right here. I was using my handheld radio and I was waiting to listen to them, and I was hearing the scenario and waiting to get in a time to tell them this was what I was doing. And so the poor man that had situational awareness, when he said, he didn't even talk if you could hear it, he said cleared to glam instead of cleared to land. So you could tell there was an element of him being uncomfortable coming into land there at the field. You could hear that the air traffic controller told him, "You're landing on the big runway." That's because he had situational awareness issues with coming into land and which runway, and the controller wanted to make sure he got that right. So remember, the controllers are trying to help us. And if you don't get it right, or they don't get it right, we help each other in that communication. So that's what I wanted to point out there. Okay, moving on. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat box, and they will. Okay. Oh, there's just a delay. That's why I screwed it up last time. Okay, so they'll we'll have a time for questions and answers at the end. So if you have something that you want to make sure that I answer, put it in the chat box, and we'll get to it at the end. So that's what I was trying to do, is build good operator relationships. So Denton Airport is a control tower field. They are not used to hot air balloons. I'm the only one that's working there. Now McKinney, not that far from here, is familiar with the balloons. They have balloons flying through their airspace all the time, and I've actually landed at the airport there before. And so their controllers are great. But I have to build a good operator relationship with my local controllers, because my area is Denton, and it's a Class D airspace, and I'm an aircraft. I'm allowed to operate there, and they have good facilities that I can use for training of pilots when, okay, I'm a student pilot now, but I'm going for commercial, and I want to be a flight instructor for the balloon. And so I'm already looking ahead to having to build the relationships. So how do we do that? We can contact them by phone. You contact the ATC facility, and you discuss your hot air balloon operations in your area, okay? So you can also request a controller specifically to be your go-to person should you have any questions or issues at all. So, and I've done that. I know most of the controllers, and I have one specific one. If I need to go to somebody quickly, I can send a text to that person or call them on the phone. And so that's good to have. If possible, you want to have the controllers become familiar with hot air balloon operations. So over time, as I start having training events and flying events, I will invite them to come out so that they can see what it is up close, so that they know, okay, that's a candlestick. My controllers now know, who are working, that's a candlestick. All she's doing is staying on the ground and lighting that burner off. And they said, by the way, it looked pretty cool from their point of view in the tower. So that was nice. So all to try to promote goodwill with my local controllers and to educate them on what they can expect from me, because honestly, they're a little concerned about my balloon operations interfering with aircraft operations, but they know they can't tell me no. So I'm trying to be a good sport and a good player and a team player with everyone, so that I don't become a nuisance. We don't want to give balloonists a bad name in the community. And so it's really important to me to build these good relationships. And then consider a show and tell at the field, so that air traffic control and others become familiar with your equipment and your operations. And that's what I did 2 months in a row in January and February. And that second one was what you heard from there. Okay, let's continue. Let's see if this goes. Seems like there's a little delay for some reason. There it goes. Okay, so pre-flight planning. And again, we're talking about talking on the radio, air traffic control, communications. What can you do for pre-flight planning the day of the flight? Hold on, I think we missed one somewhere. There we go. Okay, let me use these keys. Okay, so pre-flight planning, the night before a flight, you need to become familiar with the use of your handheld radio. So if you're not used to using one, see, and I put a carabiner on mine so I don't lose it. I hook it up to the balloon. And you need to just really be familiar. I use this ICOM, and I pre-program the frequency, and we'll get to that in a minute. But you want to be familiar with the use of your handheld radio, VHF radio. You want to check that your radio is charged or charging before you go. So I have in this area my charger, and I make sure it's on, and I get all the green lights on there. And so I know that I have a good radio for when I need it, because I would hate to be out there and have the radio not work when I need it. Okay, and then the night before also review possible launch fields, flight paths, and landing sites. Of course, you already do this, but as it relates to review your nearby airspace. So for me, I'm going to have launch fields that are close to or within the class Delta airspace. And so that's okay, but I need to have a plan the night before of what I'm going to do the next day. And sorry about that. That was something coming in. Oh, hold on. Why did that move? Okay, so review the nearby airspace, review the nearby frequencies, and also, as I said, preset the handheld radio to the first, and maybe it's your only frequency. So when I turn this on, it will be Denton Tower, because I don't really need to talk to ground at all, because I'm not taxiing the balloon. If it were my airplane, I would call ground. But since it's tower and I'm just going to set up and then either tether or fly away, I will talk to tower only. So I only really need one frequency in the area that I'm going to be flying. All right. Let's go to the next slide. Hold on, for some reason. Okay, day of the flight. Okay, so part of pre-flight planning still for the day of the flight is, if you will be launching within the Class D airspace, call the tower on the phone and let them know, hey, I'm out here. So there might be a field within the 5-mile ring that's 4 miles, and they may not hear you because it's ground to tower far away, line of sight. And so call them on the phone, say, hey, I'm out here and I'm going to be launching, and give them an idea of the direction you're going. If you're going to be launching just outside the Class D airspace, let's say 6 miles, but so you're not in it, but you're close, consider still calling them on the phone. That way, when you pop up, if you get a wind that's drifting you into the Class D airspace, that they have a heads up that you're out there and that you may be calling them for flight into the airspace. If you're launching outside the Class D airspace between 5 and 10 miles, consider making an advisory radio call as soon as possible and when you're in a safe position to do so. So for instance, one of the fields I'm looking at using that is very attractive to me is about 6 miles east of Denton. So I will be calling them or sending a text, hey, heads up, I'm going to be launching from this site. And then they have an idea. And then what I'll do is, after I take off, even if I don't penetrate their airspace due to the winds, let's say maybe the balloon takes me further away instead of closer, I'll still give them that advisory call. And the reason why I'm doing that is because when we're flying the airplane, the 5 miles is where we need to talk to them. But at 10 miles out, most airplanes will call with an advisory call saying, heads up, I'm coming in. So it's good between 5 and 10 miles to give them an advisory call, hey, I'm out here. Okay, they're not really controlling that airspace, but they do like to have a heads up so that if they're sending planes in your direction, they can say there's a balloon out there. So that is just a very good practice. Okay, before you speak, make sure you're on the correct frequency, and that is part of your pre-flight planning to help you with that. Because it doesn't help you if you're on the wrong frequency at all. You're not going to get them. Adjust the volume of the radio. Now, this is very important. Of course, with respect to the burner, that you want to adjust the volume of the radio is necessary so that you can hear them. And also, make sure your communication calls are with respect to your burner use. So if you call them and you know you're going to have to burn and they're going to be calling you back, you're going to miss it, probably. I am testing out, I will be testing out using AirPod This one allows for Bluetooth connection to an AirPod, and I'm actually going to at some point try it out and see if that helps. So even if I'm burning, if I'm getting a radio call back, maybe I'll be able to hear them, but I'm not sure. So I'll let you know about that when I try it out. And the general rule of thumb always is listen before you speak. You always want to, when you turn it on, you want to wait, see if anyone's talking, and then if nobody's talking, go ahead and speak. So on the communication that you heard on that first audio clip, I actually waited because for quite a while, I was waiting for him to deal with that situation with the plane that was a little confused. SA, for those of you who don't know it, is situational awareness. I should have probably mentioned that earlier. Not having a good SA on where you are, SA stands for situational awareness. And I was listening to this whole thing develop, and then I waited I waited for all that and to give him a free moment, and then I spoke. So always listen before you speak. And that way you're not talking on somebody as well. All right, let's see if this clicks. All right, let me just make sure. Okay. Okay, so for non-towered airport, radio calls are always made to traffic. You're calling other airplanes and you call it traffic. So I call at Denton when the tower is not in use, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. is when the tower is going. But before 6 a.m., it is a non-towered airport. And so all my calls would be to Denton traffic. When it's a towered field, then I call Denton Tower. So you want to make your radio calls to whoever is the controlling agency that needs to know. Now, most time ground probably won't need to know, and maybe just tower. So more than likely, I'm going to end up using tower mostly. But even if you call ground on, let's say, just a tether only, that would be fine as well. In my opinion, if I'm tethering the balloon and I'm lifting it off the ground, it is considered an in-flight thing. It's a controlled flight, but you're still in flight. And for my idea as a pilot is if I'm going in flight, just like a helicopter would be lifting off the ground, that would be a call to tower. Helicopters don't even call ground, they go straight to tower. And so that's probably what I'll do the most of the time. Now, you could be an airspace controlled by an approach control or a center. So you need to know, based on your geographical location, what facility controls that airspace and who you need to make the call to. All right, for some reason my things don't like to click right. All right, let me go back one just to make sure. Okay, I wanted to give you examples. This came out, so I like the balloon flying handbook. They did a really good job. I know some of the people who put it together, and I recognize some of the people in the pictures, so it's really fun to go through. And I really do use it as a good reference. For those of you who don't know, it's free on the FAA website. Download it. You can have the PDF version. It has great colored pictures, so it's not like the old days where some of the FAA handbooks were somewhat boring and hard to look at, but they've made it really nice. And I've actually used it in some of my videos as well. So the balloon flying handbook, this is what they say. For radio communications on pages 5.9 through 5.11, you have the phonetic alphabet, radio procedures, loss of radio communication. Those are all good things to review just in case if you're in an area where you need to talk to air traffic control. You need to have an awareness of all those. In Chapter 7, they have in-flight maneuvers, which covers chase crew management. And interestingly, I feel like it's almost slightly out of place in the location of where this is, but on page 715, they had the use of VHF radio, like this one, and it talks about using frequencies 123.3 and 123.5, which are glider frequencies. I've never heard that. Maybe some of you in the ballooning community have. I've never used those frequencies. I didn't even know those were for gliders. And they suggest if you're going to use the VHF radio, handheld radio in the balloon to, let's say, another plane that's circling you, that try to contact them on 122.75. That's the air-to-air. If I'm flying with a friend of mine, we will switch we're in two separate planes, just like the airplane's an aircraft, just like the balloon. So if I'm in a balloon, air-to-air, and I'm in VHF, 122.75 is the most appropriate frequency air-to-air to be on. That's the same thing for airplanes as well. So I didn't know about that, but it must be, as far as the glider frequencies, but it must be enough of a concern that they put it in the FAA balloon flying handbook. So something to consider. I've included some of the examples that they gave, and we're not going to go through them there, but it's basically the same thing that I said. It's Williamson traffic or Air Acres traffic or enterprise traffic. Now those are all non-towered because of the word traffic. That's how we know it's a non-towered. So it's always the controlling facility, remember, is always the lead, but it's always who you are, where you are, and what you want to do. So if you look at those examples, and I'll give you just a couple seconds here to read through those examples that are on the computer. If you read through those, you can see that those all follow the same pattern. And then they end with, the only difference is they end with Williamson traffic. They'll end with the traffic. And the reason why that is, a lot of times, is because if you're on a Unicom frequency for a non-towered airport, or we call them uncontrolled, you could call them uncontrolled field. So if you're on that frequency is shared by many different airports. And so when you're calling a traffic, you're calling traffic in the beginning and at the end, usually. Now, I'm trying to remember in my next examples if that's what I did as well, and I believe I did because that's normal, but we'll see if that's what I did correctly. But that is the way you're supposed to talk on the radio for uncontrolled fields or non-towered fields. All right, next slide. Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Pause it. Let me pause it. Oh, it's going the wrong way. I don't know why it goes the wrong way. Okay, so we're going to listen to now what I was just talking about. These are my transmissions to Denton traffic before the tower was open, okay? So there's various ones, and on the screen this time, instead of being just a black screen, I have a blurry picture of myself in the balloon, but the main focus is you're going to see what it is, what the communication is for, whether it's for tether or taking off or flying through the airspace or landing. So I have all of those in there. So let's go ahead and listen to those real quick.
And traffic. Balloon 7024 Delta departing the grass south of Lima to the east. Denton traffic. Denton traffic, balloon 7024 Delta inflating south in the grass area on Lima, inflation only. Denton traffic. Denton traffic, balloon 7024 Delta inflated in grass area south of Lima. Ready for departure will be to the northeast. Denton traffic. Denton traffic, balloon 7024 Delta departing the area to the northeast. Denton traffic. Denton traffic, balloon 7024 Delta launching from 6 miles east of the field will be northbound. Denton traffic. Denton traffic, balloon 7024 Delta transitioning the area at 1,000 feet from the south to the northeast. Denton traffic. Denton traffic, balloon 7024 Delta flying east of the field at 3 miles northbound Denton traffic. Denton traffic, balloon 7024 Delta approaching from the southeast for landing Denton traffic. Denton traffic, balloon 7024 Delta landing south of the field at the approach end of 368 Denton traffic.
Okay, all these, I know I went through them kind of quick. I tried to get rid of all the dead space between it so that it made it more concise. These are all available for you on YouTube. Also, Adam's going to have the link in the handout so that you can access them and you can go through them a little bit slower as well. And now let's go to the one with tower.
And traffic.
It's the tower one, a non-towered one again. Okay, let's start with the tower communications now.
Attention aircraft time 1200 Zulu. Denton Tower is resuming class Delta services. Runways 36 right and left are in use. The wind is 02010 23021, overcast 5,000 currently. Any aircraft vehicles in the area, please advise.
Denton Tower balloon 7024 Delta will be inflating in the grass area south of Lima.
Balloon 7024 Delta, Denton Tower, acknowledged. Turn off 23021.
302124 Delta. Denton Tower balloon 7024 Delta in the grass area south of Lima, inflation training only.
And balloon 7024 Delta, Denton Tower, roger.
Denton Tower balloon 7024 Delta in the grass area south of Lima, setting up for tether only.
And balloon 7024 Delta, Denton Tower, roger.
Denton Tower balloon 7024 Delta in the grass area south of Lima, ready for departure. We will be northeast bound.
And balloon 7024 Delta, Denton Tower, roger. Departure will be at your own risk. The wind is 02011, altimeter 3021.
Departure at on risk 3021, balloon 24 Delta. Denton Tower balloon 7024 Delta, 6 miles to the east, will be departing and flying northbound.
And balloon 7024 Delta, Denton Tower, roger. Thanks for the call. Turn altimeter 3021.
3021, balloon 24 Delta. Denton Tower balloon 7024 Delta, 10 miles to the south, transitioning the airspace to the north.
And balloon 7024 Delta, Denton Tower, transition through the Delta approved at or above 2,000 feet.
At or above 2,000 feet, transition approved, balloon 24 Delta. Denton Tower balloon 7024 Delta, 10 miles to the southeast, inbound for a landing.
And balloon 7024 Delta, Denton Tower, roger. Continue inbound, report to southeast.
Report to southeast, balloon 24 Delta. Denton Tower balloon 7024 Delta is to southeast. We're aiming for the grassy area to the east of departure end of 36 right.
And balloon 7024 Delta, Denton Tower, roger. And landing will be at your own risk. Current wind 020 at 8.
Landing at on risk and copy the wind, balloon 24 Delta. Denton Tower, good morning, balloon 7024 Delta in the southeast area. Sorry, let's try that again. Balloon 7024 Delta, 6 miles to the east, will be launching and heading northbound.
Wait a sec. Try that one again. Okay, the 7024 Delta, Denton Tower, thanks for the call. Turn altimeter 3021.
3021, balloon 24 Delta.
Hey, I say bonanza. Hold on. Let's try that again.
Okay, I'll do the full call.
Okay, so here I'll read this real quick to you. ATC communications for lighter than air pilots. I said a special thanks to air traffic controller Zach Rowland of Denton Enterprise Airport in Texas, who helped me with these transmissions. The video is for use in training and a refresher for those who fly lighter. I have used these, my balloon as an example. They are not all inclusive. Rather, they're intended to be a guide for comfort and familiarity when talking to ATC. And the last part of that said, basically, as you can see, that despite experience level, we still make mistakes. He was making some mistakes. I was making some mistakes, and that's going to happen. Remember, it's just a conversation you're having, and you're just trying to get what you are doing across to them. And they are human too. They make mistakes, and as you get to know them, it makes it easier to talk on the radio. Okay, let's see if we... Okay, so here's some helpful hints and the conclusion. Just as I said, it's a conversation. That's all it is just a conversation. I recommend using liveatc.net and listening to ATC.com. Now, it will be between airplanes, but the more you get your ear tuned to what they're saying, the easier it will be to help you understand and learn how to talk better to air traffic control. And the bottom line is just relax and have fun with it. And that's all. Any questions? We have a little bit of time for some questions, so I will hand it back over to Chris.
Yeah, there's quite a few questions I could throw at you here.
Okay, I'm gonna send it to Chris.
All right, Adam, if you want to pop back in there as well, some of these questions might pertain to you as well. We have an airport with up to airspace attached to it, rectangular coming off the Class C airspace. I believe it is for the approach to the airport normally. You don't communicate with Class E airspace, but since this is connected to the airport and surface up, what should a balloon pilot do?
Okay, so my understanding is, did you say it was a Class C that has an extension, or Class D with an extension?
It was a Class Echo with a class connected to a Class C.
Okay, I would give them an advisory call. If you're not specifically in their airspace, go ahead and give them an advisory call. That way they know that you're there. And if you're far enough out, you may have to call them on the phone instead of the radio. That one call that we heard me say 6 miles out and that I was about to launch is probably unrealistic. I don't think they're going to be able to hear me from 6 miles out on the ground before I launch. But if that's the case, I have the tower phone number handy. I'll call them on the tower and say, hey, I'm getting ready to launch. So it's always a good idea just to let them know you're in the area. If you're that close to the airspace, make that telephone call first and let them know you're there, just in case the winds take you into their airspace. Then you have a heads up that at least you've communicated with them. Because as a Class C, you just need to have the conversation started to go into their airspace. You don't have to have clearance in. So just give them a heads up by phone if you can't do by radio.
Okay. If time allows, could you address accessing Class C and figuring out which frequency to call on, approach versus tower?
Sure. So tower, just like a Class D, the easiest way to remember it, and this is a great question for those who are a little bit unfamiliar with airspace. The Class D is that inner ring. Let me see if I can get up my ForeFlight real quick. My ForeFlight is what I use for my charts. And so that inner ring, I'm trying to see if they got rid of it. And the Class B, they don't have it. We don't have a Class C around. Does somebody have a Class C chart they can look at real quick? So anyway, if the Class C has that ring in there, that's where tower controls. Tower controls basically the same dimensions as the Class D. So you've got the generally 25 surface to 2,500 feet, and you've got the 5 mile rings generally. Now Class C extends 5 miles further out from that. So you have a 10 mile ring, right? So approach controls outside of the 5 miles. So even in Denton, it's not a Class C, but I have tower within the 5, and I have approach that controls the area from technically from 10 to 5. Oh yeah, thank you. So I have I have approach Denton, I have a regional approach that controls, but since I'm only talking to, I'm not on an IFR plan or anything, and I'm not in a Class C has that approach for sure. And then the tower, so they have approach. All planes will call approach. Now, how do you figure out the frequency? The best way to figure out the frequency is if you're using an airport facility directory, you look up Cedar Rapids and you find the frequencies on that. Dialing in the ATIS there, 124.15, they will broadcast the frequencies as well. Or if you're using ForeFlight, I go to the airport tab and I put in the airport and I get the frequencies here as well. So those are different ways to figure out what frequency you need to be on. But if it's a Class C, the outer ring is controlled by approach, and that inner ring, just like Class D, is controlled by tower.
All right, very good. In similar relationship to some of the Class C questions we have regarding the new Class C flyover airspace, or excuse me, Class C flyover and airspace with LTA balloons, can you touch more on that for me, please? Tell us what to do with these airports and how to talk to them about it. I fly around non-towered airports, and I'm just curious, in case I ever get caught in the situation, what do you do if you get close to B, C, and D airports?
Okay, so first of all, if you know you're going to go in the airspace, you give them a call. So if you think, though, that you're flying over the top of the airspace, so for instance, we have Cedar Rapids here in our example. You can see the top of the airspace is at 4,900 feet. The outer ring goes from 2,100 feet, so you could actually fly in that outer ring at 2,000 feet and not be in their airspace. But at 2,100 feet, now you're in their airspace. So from 2,100 feet to 4,900 feet on that outer ring is in their airspace. And for surface to 4,900 feet in the middle, you're in their airspace. So if you're flying your balloon and you're coming across the top of that airspace at, say, 6,000 feet, do you have to call them? No, you don't have to call them. You're over the top. Is it a good idea to call them? Yes. If I'm in an airplane, I call them. If I like them to know I'm there. It's similar to if you've ever heard the term VFR flight following for airplanes. It's the same thing. It's like a VFR flight following. You're saying, hey, heads up, I'm flying over your airspace right now. Do you have to? No, you don't have to. Is it a good idea? It's definitely a good idea.
Okay, one question here is, what is your source for the tower phone number?
Okay, real quick before I answer that question, because you have it up on the chart also, I just want to point out that also in the upper right left-hand corner to the northwest of Cedar Rapids, it also says there, contact Cedar Rapids approach within 20 miles. You don't have to, but that's that advisory airspace. Okay, so how do I find the tower? So the tower phone number I found usually I think is in the airport facility directory. If it's not in the airport facility directory, I contact local pilots actually who know the number, like the local FBO, or in this case, believe it or not, it was social media, Facebook. I became Facebook friends with a couple of them before I flew my little Cherokee, and I didn't know. My question to them was like, what do you want me to say on the radio at that spot where I need to call you? What is that called for you? And I also asked them, by the way, what is your phone number? So that's how you get it. Just if it's not published in the airport facility directory, which I believe there should be something, there's usually a manager's phone number. So you might have to investigate to find out what that tower phone number is, but somebody on the field has it for sure, and you're going to be able to get it. You just might need to dig a little bit.
All right, this is a question that I can relate to when I was learning to fly as well. Is it allowed and acceptable to ask the tower to speak slower?
Okay, yes. It definitely is. I still do that as a captain sometimes, actually. If I get a controller who's rapid firing they're only supposed to feed you about 3 pieces of information at a time, and sometimes they will feed you more information that you can deal with. I will sometimes say, can you slow down on that or repeat again? I try to follow the pilot controller phraseology as much as I can. That's found in the Aeronautical Information Manual, I believe, will be a piece of that pilot controller glossary, I believe they call it. I've been flying 35 years. Honestly, some of my communication has slipped a little bit. And I do want to address something real quick that made me think of that. This question has made me think of that I want to mention to you as well. But yes, you can absolutely say slow down. Sometimes some people will say student pilot if they're a student pilot. I don't necessarily recommend it because you don't want to lean on it for a crutch, but definitely you can tell them slow down or say again, can you repeat that? Any of those. Well, let me go back and say, when I was listening to the audio, one thing that I hadn't mentioned of the traffic, when I was calling not the traffic, I'm sorry. I did say it correctly if you noticed. I said traffic in the beginning and traffic at the end. So that is a natural thing for me, and it followed what the guidance was in the Balloon Flying Handbook. But with the tower, I wanted to point out to you, when you're on your initial contact with tower, you always say your full registration number. So balloon 7024 Delta. Then when I get the clearance and to read back, I can shorten it to 24 Delta, the last part. And usually they do that as well, but you're allowed to shorten it up after that first transmission. And that's what I was doing with all of those 24 Delta to keep the radio communications as concise as possible.
All right, in relationship to getting the phone number for the tower, are we speaking to the same people as on the radio?
Yes, you absolutely are. So one of the things I highly recommend, and I used to, when I was actively a flight instructor for airplanes, I would take my students out, and I'll do this with the balloon as well when I am training at the Denton Airport. And when tower opens back up after COVID, right now they're all closed, but when they open back up, they will allow you to come up and see what they're working with, and I highly recommend it. Because then you can see what their side of the equation is. You can see them up there and what they're looking at. Because I have an awareness of what they're looking at, I knew why they were freaked out the first time I did the candlestick and they thought I was going to launch, even though I didn't have the envelope on at all. And so I knew that they could see me really well from their position. And yes, definitely. The people that you call on the phone are the same ones that are answering in the tower at the same time. And it's good to get to.
All right, very good.
Yeah, good to get to know them and know them on a first name basis. That was Zach.
All right.
Talking.
Yeah. We have 3 towers here in Shreveport, Louisiana is the reference. Should we be using the common ATC channel as opposed to a specific tower?
Can we pull that up? Can you pull that up, Chris, is there a way to get that so we can look at the chart real quick?
The way you do that is ask Adam to do it.
Oh, sorry. Adam's got it. Sorry, Adam, can you do that for us, please?
What's the identifier for it?
I'm not sure what Shreveport, Louisiana identifier is.
SHV, I think.
That sounds correct.
Yeah.
I was going to say, while he's doing that, I'm going to talk from my notes, but he's got it up there already, so you guys missed out. So thank you.
Okay. So yeah, there's Shreveport. Okay, can you say again the question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just rolled it. I'm trying to get back to it. Oh my God. Okay, we have 3 towers here in Shreveport, Louisiana. Should we be using the common ATC channel as opposed to a specific tower?
No, so with those 3 there, you're going to want to talk to the tower that is controlling for the area that you are. So that is confusing, but okay, let's take a look. So each blue airport is its own tower. Then you have the dashed ring, and you can only really see the dashed ring on the one at the top. Yep, right there. Okay, yep, thank you for pointing that out. Now the other two don't have it, and that is because this is overall a class C with it, right? Because if it was a we still have some terses out there, but they're blue, I believe. Is that correct? Right, Adam? This is a class C. The whole
Yep,
thing.
it looks like, yep, it looks like the class C with the class D to the north there.
Yep, so the class D is to the north. The class C's there's two class C's that are joined together. And so each tower has its own frequency. We can see that. CT is control tower. So Shreveport Regional has 121.4. Barksdale has, and that's the Air Force Base, that has 128.25. And then we have the one to the north is Shreveport Downtown. There it is, 120.225. So you would need to say, let's say you would call, if you're southwest of Shreveport Regional, you would call Regional Tower. If you are southeast of Barksdale, you're going to call Barksdale Tower. And if you think you're going to be up into the 1600, actually, I would just call the approach for them. And the approach, there's one frequency over there to the west that says that contact Shreveport approach within 20 miles on 119.9. The frequency 335.55 is because that's military. So the military guys are going to be talking to Shreveport approach on the UHF frequency 335, and you'll call them on 119.9. So I recommend calling them probably on approach for that whole area, and especially if you think you're going to get into the 1600. But if you're going to stay low, then you can go right to tower.
All right, very good. In a lot of your examples, you were always operating as a single ship. What if operating with a group?
Okay, if you're operating with a group and you're close enough, then it's a flight of two. Only one of you needs to talk. It's a flight of two. If you don't think you can maintain close enough flying together in formation, then you need to let air traffic control know, and you both need to have your own separate communications. It's the same thing we do with airplanes. Flight of two, if we can maintain, when we separate, we need to tell them that we've separated and then have our own independent communications.
I don't know if you'll be able to answer this one, but do balloons show up on ATC's radar?
No, they don't. I can answer it. I'm not a controller, but I've seen the radar enough to know that I don't think they show up. But the good news is they're so big and bright that you can eyeball out. So
okay, very good.
The tower should be able to see you.
All right. Hey, Chris, I think I'm going to hand this back on. A lot of these other questions we might try to encapsulize and get some emails out. Either reach out to Chris or myself or Adam if you really have. We just got a bunch of questions and we could be on for another 2 hours, so I apologize we can't get to them all. All right, back to you, Chris.
Sure. Okay, I've got it. And before we go, I've got a few notes here that I'd like to speak sincerely to everyone out there. That, like Janice said, do a tower tour. And if you don't know how to do a tower tour when they open back up from the COVID, find out who your FAST team program manager is in your area and just say, hey, we'd like to tour the tower. And they can usually take 5 to 10 people at a time, go right into the tower. You'll see where ground control operates. You'll see where approach control operates, and you can go up in the tower cab usually, unless it's a secure facility at some of the larger places won't let you do that. Because we have all, I can say by the questions here, we have all different levels of experience out there. So the best way to do it is just go. Otherwise, talk to your instructor, tell your instructor that you want to do that, and your instructor can make those connections. The tower loves to help pilots. That's their profession. They will do that. And that way you'll make contacts. You'll know who this tower guy is, and maybe you'll even recognize his voice. Interact with your controllers. Invite them to one of your functions. They would love to go to a function, maybe even offer a ride. You know, they can't do it on official time, but they can do it off hours and really see what you're dealing with, and then you'll know what they're dealing with. Get to know them. Have them speak to your pilot group. They will come out and speak to a safety meeting. They'll tell you what they like to see from their ATC side of things. One thing, Des Moines told us that radar does not see you. No matter how big you are, radar does not see you unless you have a transponder. And you know, they might be able to look out over the horizon and see balloons out there, but if you just, you know, say I'm out here at 6,000 feet, from 6,000 to 3,000, you know, it's like, okay. And then they can warn other aircraft that you're out there, but they can't see you on radar. Don't be afraid to call on the radio and talk to them. Once you get the frequency, call and talk to them. Don't make the first time you have to get on a radio and try to talk to ATC is right when you're ready to fly into Class B airspace where you're going to be in trouble. You know, you're not in trouble if you can talk to them on the radio. You'll give them a heads up. And last but not least, go on FAAsafety.gov under the courses, and there's an airspace course, so you can learn the airspaces better. And there's also an ATC communication course that will help you out too. So like David said, we've got the questions here. We'll, if you want to reach out to us, please do that. We'll try to get you some answers, but there's some good courses out there. I'd like to thank Janet for sharing her time with us. And Adam, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Janet again for sharing her expertise with us tonight, and wanted to invite everyone to mark their calendars for March 22nd at 6 p.m. Central for our next LTA outreach webinar, and that will feature Robert Terry with the Airman Testing Branch at the FAA. So looking forward to that presentation and hope you join us for that.
Is there going to be a test?
Maybe just for you.
Okay, thank you.
All
Okay.
right.
All right. Good night, everybody. Have safe flights, and we'll see you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.